Ever feel like research budgets are some secret code? Like something only accountants can crack?
Oh, yeah, I can definitely see that, but I'll let you in on something. A good budget. It's not just about the numbers, it's about telling a story.
Okay, so like a spreadsheet suddenly become a novel.
Well, think of it this way, like every single line, even every dollar you put in there, it's like a chapter in a book. It tells the story of your research, right? It's how you convince the people who have the money that their investment is going to lead to something really amazing.
So it's not just like, here's what I need, but more about justifying every single thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and a great place to start is with personnel, the people, the heart of any project, really.
Okay.
So rather than just listing salaries and job titles, you want to really showcase what each person brings to the table, their expertise.
Right.
It's kind of like a casting call, highlighting why each team member is crucial for the whole thing to work, for it to be a success.
So instead of saying research assistant, $30,000, it's more like Sarah. She's a data analysis whiz, great at spotting trends, and without her, we can't interpret these complex findings.
You got it. That's exactly it. That kind of detail shows you've really thought about each person's role and how, like, their time is going to contribute to the project.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah. So what's next? Do we get to go shopping for fancy equipment now?
Oh, absolutely. The fun part. But again, it's not just a wish list. Let's say you need a really high-powered electron microscope.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just put that down. You have to explain why a standard microscope just won't do.
Okay, so if I'm researching nanoparticles, I can't just write microscope $50,000.
Right. You have to emphasize what it is about the electron microscope, like its incredible magnification power, and why that is essential for what you're doing for visualizing those nanoparticles.
It's like saying, this is the key that unlocks the door to these answers we can't get any other way.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
I'm starting to see how every little detail builds up the whole picture of what the research can do.
Exactly. And don't forget all that stuff that seems small, the materials and supplies,
Right.
chemicals, software licenses, paper. You wouldn't believe how quickly it adds up.
It's easy to overlook those when you're thinking about the big, shiny equipment.
Yeah, yeah. But being really meticulous and itemizing every little thing, that's key. It shows whoever is giving you the money that you're thinking about all the practical parts of research and that you're going to manage their money well.
So we've got our team, the tools, all our everyday stuff, all planned out.
Right.
But what if you have to travel somewhere for the research? Like to collect data?
Yes, travel expenses, always an interesting one. You have to make sure each trip has a clear purpose and that it's tied to what your research is trying to achieve.
Gotcha.
Just going to a conference isn't really a good enough reason. You need to highlight why that specific conference is so important.
So instead of just saying conference registration $500, it's more like presenting our early findings at the International Nanotechnology Symposium. This is crucial to get feedback from leading experts.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It shows you're using that travel time strategically to push the research forward and not just, to get those frequent flyer miles.
Right. It's all about making those connections,
Yeah.
showing how each expense, no matter how big or small, moves the project forward.
You got it. A well-crafted budget, it tells a story, it shows that you've planned everything carefully, that you're thinking strategically, and that makes it much more likely that you'll get the money you need to really succeed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot about like the nuts and bolts of how to put a budget together, but I'm curious about like the bigger picture here. Why is this so important for researchers, like beyond just getting the funding?
Yeah, that's a great question. A well-crafted budget, it's so much more than just numbers on a page. It shows how meticulously you've planned everything, your strategic thinking, and really a deep understanding of how the entire research process works.
It's like a blueprint.
Yeah, it's like a blueprint for success. Yeah.
So it's almost like looking into the mind of the researcher. You see their vision and how they're going to make it happen.
Exactly. You're demonstrating that you can manage all the resources effectively and actually deliver on what you're promising.
Right.
A good budget, a strong budget, that could be the difference between getting the money for your research and it just staying an idea that never gets off the ground.
It's like that saying, show me your budget and I'll tell you what you value.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It shows what your priorities are and that you're committed to doing excellent work.
Absolutely. And showing that commitment to excellence and it being reflected in a well-structured budget, that goes a long way in building trust and confidence with the people who have the money.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our look into research budgets, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Oh, I always love a good brain teaser. What do you have for us?
Okay, so think back to the last time you had to justify buying something. Could be something big or something small, it didn't matter. What did you do to convince yourself, or maybe someone else, that it was worth it?
Interesting. Did you focus on the long-term benefits? Or maybe like how it would make your life better, or maybe even save you money in the long run?
Exactly. And now think about how you can use those same ideas to create a research budget that's really going to convince people.
Yeah.
Because in a way, we're all trying to get people on board with something we believe in, whether it's a new gadget or a research project that could change the world.
I love that comparison. It really is all about communication, showing how much something is worth and building that trust. And at the end of the day, it's about making sure that all those resources are being used in the absolute best way possible to achieve something amazing, something meaningful.
That's a fantastic point to end on. A really well-made budget, it shows the researcher's vision, their planning, and their commitment to making a real difference.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, that's it for this part of our deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back soon to uncover even more about the world of research budgets.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, so we've talked about how a budget is kind of like a roadmap to get where you want to go with your research. But, even with the best plans, sometimes things go a little sideways.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Things happen. You can't always predict everything.
Right, so that's where this contingency planning comes in, right?
Yeah, exactly. Even when you've been super careful with your budget and planned everything out, you can still get those unexpected costs. The ones that can throw everything off track.
Yeah, so it's kind of like having a little cushion, just in case.
Yeah, exactly. A safety net, not like extra money to spend just in case.
Right.
But it shows that you're thinking ahead, you're managing the money well, and funders, they really like to see that.
So, if I'm asking for a grant for, let's say, $100,000, it's reasonable to include maybe 5 to 10,000 extra for this contingency fund.
Yeah, that's a good range to think about. And remember, you got to be open about it. Explain exactly what that money is for in your budget.
So no hiding things in there.
Exactly. You want to be super clear about what kind of situations would mean you need to use that money and how you're going to keep track of it all. That shows you're being careful and responsible.
It's like saying, hey, I've thought about this and I'm ready for anything, but I'm going to be smart about how I spend every dollar.
Yeah, that's the idea. It builds trust and it shows you're serious about taking care of their investment.
So besides the contingency fund, are there other ways to make a budget more flexible?
For sure, you got to think about things like prices changing. Let's say you have to travel for your research and you know that flights and hotels can change a lot. You have to kind of acknowledge that in the budget.
So instead of putting an exact number down, you give a range and explain how you'll adjust if you need to.
Exactly. You could have backup plans, different dates, different suppliers, that kind of thing. It shows you're thinking ahead and you have a plan to deal with things if they change.
Like having a plan A, D, and C just in case.
Exactly. It's way better to be ready for those changes than to pretend they won't happen. It shows that whoever is giving you money, that you can handle it.
Okay.
Right.
Now we've talked about the actual how-to of making a budget, but I'm curious about the bigger picture. Why is this so important for researchers besides just getting the money?
That's a great question. A well-crafted budget. It shows so much more than just the numbers. It shows that you've planned everything out, that you have a strategy, and that you understand the whole research process from start to finish.
Right.
It really is like a blueprint for success.
It's almost like you can see how the researcher thinks, what their vision is and how they're going to make it a reality.
Yes, exactly. And it shows that you can manage all the resources and do what you said you were going to do.
Right.
A good, solid budget. It can really make all the difference. It can get your research off the ground instead of it just being an idea.
It's like that saying, show me your budget and I'll tell you what you value.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It shows what matters most to you and how much you care about doing great work.
Definitely. And that commitment to doing great work, it shows in the budget, and that builds trust with the people who are giving you the money.
Now, before we wrap this up, I want to leave everyone with something to think about.
Oh, I like it. Something to ponder. What is it?
Okay, so think about the last time you had to really justify buying something. It could be big or small, doesn't matter. But how did you convince yourself or maybe someone else that it was worth it?
That's a good one. Did you think about how it would help you in the long run or how it would make things easier or maybe even save you money?
Exactly. And now think about how you could use those same ideas to make a really strong budget for your research. Because at the end of the day, we're all trying to get people to support something that we really believe in, whether that's, a new phone or a research project that could change everything.
Oh, I love that connection. It really is all about communication, showing people why something is valuable and building that trust. And it's about using the resources, the money, in the best way possible to make a real difference.
That's a great point. A well-made budget. It shows how much the researcher cares about their work and what they're trying to achieve.
I couldn't agree more. A good budget. It's a sign of a great researcher.
Yeah, it really shows that a budget's not just about the numbers. It's about showing what that research could do, the impact it could have.
Exactly. It's like you're saying, hey, I'm going to be responsible with the money, but it's also going to lead to something big, something worthwhile.
Well said. Thanks for taking this deep dive into research budgets with me today. I think we've all learned something new.
Oh, for sure. There's so much more to it than you might think at first.
Absolutely. And whether you're just starting out in research or you've been doing it for years, learning how to put together a good budget, well, that's a skill that can really make a difference.
Couldn't agree more.
So until next time, keep those minds curious and those budgets balanced.